Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha. The Dharma, infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered even in a million kalpas. Now we are able to hear, study, and follow it. May we fully realize the Tathagata's true meaning. Now we are at the lecture notes 11, section 11. The topic here is about karma, rebirth, and interdependence. The corresponding lines in the Heart Sutra are the following. No ignorance or ending of ignorance, and so forth, up to no aging and death or ending of aging and death. Now it is a good time at this point to review the whole thread of the Heart Sutra content. I would do so according to the lecture notes. Okay, notes section 1 to 5, where it starts from the beginning. Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, while deeply immersed in Prajnaparamita, and so on, until the end of the sentence, and transcended all suffering. That corresponds to notes 1 through 5. In this one single sentence, we study the core message or the core statement of the Heart Sutra. And then we study the teaching in more detail. So in notes 6 to 10, starting with Shariputra, form is not different from emptiness, and so on, until where we stopped last time, which is realm of mind consciousness. So there, in notes 6 through 10, we establish a correct view of ourselves, how we should correctly understand or see ourselves, and how we correctly see others and the world. So we establish the correct view, the right view, all right, the right perspective, the right understanding. Now we are at section 11. Here we begin to gain an operational perspective of this process of our life. That means we learn how our actions affect ourselves and others, which is why I have the life I have today in this life. Is my life good? Is my life bad? Is my life mixed with good and bad? Happiness and sorrow? That depend on what? What causes my life to be this way? It has to do with what I've done in the past. It has to do with what I'm doing right now, how I react to what is happening in my life. And how I react will also shape our future. Okay? Not absolutely determine it, but it will shape it to a very large degree. And so in order to understand this, we need to understand the concept of karma, or the principle of causality. And in this line of the Heart Sutra, which is referring to what is called the 12 links of interdependence, the 12 links of interdependence, Buddha helps us delve into this process from the past to the present and to the future. How in detail this process works. Okay, so it's really useful. And this, together with note 12 and note 13, which is there's no suffering, no cause, no extinction, no past, the next line. Together we study how shall we cultivate. What does the Buddhist practice involve? What do I need to do in order to achieve complete enlightenment? What do I need to do to end suffering completely, achieve nirvana? Okay, so we begin to learn about how to do this operationally, how to actually practice. Okay. Now, the 12 links of interdependence, which is the subject of this line in the Heart Sutra, involves obviously 12 links. And so there's quite a number of terminology here. And it is a very rich concept. There's a lot we can say about it. We can spend 5-10 hours on it. So it is a bit of a challenge to explain it clearly. So what Shifu will do is that in this talk, I will first give an overview of the 12 links, what it is about, how it affects our life and our practice. And then in the following talks of this module, we will go into more detail, the intricate details of the 12 links of interdependence. So before we start with the overview of the 12 links of interdependence, we want to become familiar with a few basic concepts. Basic but very important. The first is interdependence. It's the 12 links of interdependence. So we need to understand what we mean by interdependence. In Sanskrit, it's pratitya samutpada. And that is a core, absolutely a core concept in the Buddha Dharma. It is also translated traditionally as dependent origination or dependent arising. Now, Shifu is using the word interdependence because it's a relatively new word, but I think it quite clearly and simply captures the meaning of pratitya samutpada, this concept. The word interdependence is used interchangeably with dependent origination or dependent arising. Okay, they are referred to the same concept. Now, what is this? What is this interdependence? The Buddha himself gave a basic statement to explain interdependence. That is, as this arises, that also arises. As this ceases, that also ceases. Okay, what is the big deal? That doesn't seem to say very much, right? Actually, this is quite profound. As this arises, that also arises. For example, this is the sun. When the sun rises, when the sun is shining and giving us heat and energy, what also arises? Well, everything on earth, right? All the life forms depend on the sun's energy and light. As this arises, that also arises. We are here listening to the Heart Sutra lecture. How did this come about? Well, many conditions had to be there, had to come together in order for this to happen. For example, there is a Shifu that can teach this Heart Sutra, right? And two, we need to have a setup where we can record the lecture. Three, we need to have a team to do the video production and also upload it to a platform like YouTube and put it in the framework of an online course like Canvas, which is what we're using right now. And then we need to have people who are interested in this talk, who have a way to get to know, oh, there is an online talk about Heart Sutra, right? So there's many different things have to arise, have to come together first. And in order for this single thing to happen, that you are here listening to Shifu talking about the 12 links. So as this arises, that also arises. That means we need to think about whatever we are looking at, whatever event or whatever object, whatever person we're looking at, what is behind that event? What kind of elements or factors, conditions have come together for this event to happen? We're talking about cause and effect, right? And as this ceases, that also ceases. When this is gone, when a person is gone from my life, when I lose something, when I no longer possess something, when I achieve success, but then I lost it, okay, as this ceases, we also want to look at what are the causes, what are the factors, what are the conditions that make this happen. So everything in this world is interdependent with a number of other things. How everything affects everything. Some has more effect, some have less. Okay, so to understand this entire relationship, that is the idea of interdependence or pratitya samuppada. And this is crucial to our enlightenment, and this is crucial to our seeing the truth, and this is crucial to our liberation. Okay? Now, to simply understand how everything is interconnected with each other and affect each other, that's the general idea. That's the general principle. But then we need to get down to more specifics in order for this to be practical and useful. So that's what the 12 links is about. All right, the next concept is karma. What is karma? Karma is an Indian word. It's a Sanskrit word. It basically means actions or deeds, things that we do. Specifically in Buddhism, we do things with our thoughts, with our mouth, with our body. So they are mental karma or mental actions, verbal karma, and also physical karma. Right? So karma is simply the action or some deeds, some things we have done. But what is good karma? What is bad karma? Well, whatever we do, whatever we say, or even things we think can have an effect in this world, right? So if my deeds or my karma is such that it brings good, it brings benefits, it brings happiness to other sentient beings, then that action, that deed is called good karma. Or the opposite if whatever I say and do causes suffering, causes unhappiness, causes pain to other sentient beings, then that action creates bad karma. The action is defined as bad karma. And then there's a third category of neutral karma. Neutral karma means that things we have done that doesn't really lead to any suffering or happiness to other sentient beings. So it's neutral karma. Now, when Westerners think about karma, they're actually thinking about what is referred to in Buddhism as the law of causality. That is how karma, good karma, bad karma, affects to others and the consequence of that karma. So the law of causality says that when good karma is created, happiness or blessings will eventually come back to the person who created that karma. And when bad karma is created, then it causes suffering. Then suffering or dukkha, unhappiness, will come back to the person who created the bad karma. Right? So we sometimes say what goes around comes around. So that is the law of causality. So when we think about karma, karma, yeah, what goes around comes around. You're actually talking about the law of causality, which involves karma. When we create karma, we want to be aware of, is this beneficial? Is this harmful? What are the future consequences? Okay, that's what we want to think about and we want to understand. Now, another important thing about the law of causality is that it is not deterministic. Okay, so I killed somebody in a past life. In this life, I will be killed by that person. Right? Well, that is kind of the general form of karma retribution, right? Or law of causality. But it is not necessarily so. So, as the consequence of karma unfolds, there are factors or conditions that can affect the final consequence. All right, so we need to think of karma and consequences, cause and effect, not as a fixed relationship, but as a process that is constantly unfolding, constantly being carried out. Right? The general form is that good karma creates happiness, and bad karma causes suffering. But things can change to some degree, depending on what happens in the middle. All right. For example, let's say you have an argument with your wife every week. Now, when you have an argument, then both parties are unhappy, right? So that's bad karma being created. Now, if this continues and the problem doesn't get resolved, then a likely consequence is that you get divorced. The family is broken up. Yeah? But that doesn't have to be that way. If you just had an argument with your wife, but then you say, hey, I'm a Buddhist, I'm trying to change my karma. Then you say, okay, let me reflect on what I said. Let me reflect on this interaction and then how I can change myself. Is there a different way I can look at this? Is there a different perspective? Did I miss something? Have I not listened to her enough? Have I not really cared about her needs? So I think about this and I realize some insight. I get some insight and I begin to change my ways. I knock on the door, I apologize to her, and then aim to do better. Without demanding her to change, but I will make some changes. And then that changes the future consequence. Maybe you don't get a divorce. Maybe instead she is affected by your change, and then she begins to change too, and then two of you work things out, and then you have a happy family. So just because bad karma is created doesn't mean the consequence has to be a certain way. That's what Shifu means by saying the law of causality is a general principle, but it's not a deterministic thing. It's not like this has to happen in the future. Okay? Another concept we need to understand is samsara. Samsara, the endless cycle of birth, death, rebirth, and all the suffering in between. So the endless cycle of suffering. That's another Sanskrit term called samsara. And so now, the 12 links of dependent origination, or the 12 links of interdependence, this is also sometimes referred to as the 12 nidanas. The 12 nidanas. The 12 links then explain the process of the samsara, the rebirth cycle. How we go from past actions to having a life like we have right now, and how we're going to shape our future lives. So the 12 links ties together what we have just talked about: interdependence, karma, samsara. Okay? So what are the 12 links? Let us look at them. Ignorance, which leads to intentional action, which leads to consciousness, which leads to mind and form, which leads to six senses, which leads to contact, which leads to feeling, which leads to craving, which leads to grasping, which leads to being, which leads to birth, which leads to old age and death. Now, it doesn't end there. Old age and death leads back to ignorance, and the cycle continues. Now here Shifu have quoted a footnote from in the book published by Zhong Tai. The book is called A Selected Text for Sutra Study, and it is a annotation to the Heart Sutra translation in that book. The reference in the online ebook link is given here. So the book doesn't explain fully all the text, but it does give annotations to these texts. So from the annotation, it says the 12 links of dependent origination explain the process of the rebirth cycle. They are the list we just went through. And then it says, however, from the view of absolute reality, the 12 links and their elimination, ending of, which is needed to gain liberation from rebirth, are also empty. In fact, what we perceive as birth and death are actually delusions. So suffering is also empty. Okay, the last paragraph we will talk about at the end of this module. But let us first get an understanding of the 12 links. Now for this overview, we can divide them into two groups: the first 7 and the last 5. The first 7 begins with ignorance. Here it means that our thoughts, what we think about in our mind, we have ignorance. We are unclear about many things. we are confused or we are deluded about how this world works, what my life is, what is life and death, why I suffer, or why I am successful, why do some people become very wealthy and some people remain poor. So there's reason for all of this, but we don't understand it clearly. We sometimes misunderstand. Okay, so that's ignorance. Now, as we have learned before in this Heart Sutra course, the core of that ignorance is the understanding of the self, or the misunderstanding of the self, right? So that's ignorance. Because we have the ego self, the false self, we don't see ourselves clearly. So therefore, we create actions, we create karma, we say things, we do things out of that ignorance. That's the second link, intentional action. So ignorance leads to intentional action. So intentional action means that we do things out of greed, anger, ignorance, and so on. The result of that is a certain set of consciousness that we have. Our mindset. So ignorance, intentional action lead to a set of consciousness, a frame of mind that thinks in a certain way, self-centered, feeling justified to be angry at others, feeling justified to grasp things, to be greedy and pursue what I want, or pursuing things I think that will be good for me, but actually it's not. That's consciousness. Now, because of the deluded consciousness, this mental process actually creates mind and form. Form refers to the physical form, the form skandha, our body. So as a human, we have a human body. As a dog, is a body of a dog. So mind and form. Mind and form are actually all created by our karma. And then, as a human being, for example, we have eyes, nose, ears, tongue, body, and mind. So these are called the six senses. Our mind, which is a whole, become divided in its functions into the six senses. So the six senses, or the six sense organs, is in contact with the world. What's happening in my life? Okay, good things, bad things come to me, come into my life. And because of this contact, feelings are generated. Feelings of pleasure, feelings of displeasure. So that's the first seven. The first seven is what we have done in the past, what we have thought and acted in the past, it leading to this life as we have now. That's what the first seven describes. Now let us look at the next five. The next five links describes, as things are happening in my life, how I react. Which means I'm creating new karma. And whatever karma I create will shape my future. So, as we have feelings, pleasant and unpleasant feelings, that leads to craving and loathing. If something is pleasant, pleasurable, I like it, I want more, I want more. That's the typical reaction. So in my mind, I want this, I have craving. Or if it's something unpleasant, then I'm not happy, I hate it, I'm angry about it, I feel upset. So I begin to loathe, I begin to reject, I begin to push it away, right? So that's craving. And from craving comes grasping. Grasping means mentally, I make plans to get something, to get what I want. Out of greed, I want to pursue more and more pleasure or more wealth or whatever. Out of loathing, out of displeasure, I want to push away, I want to destroy, I want to deny, I want to avoid. Okay, so that's the grasping link. And then from grasping, we come to this point where we create new karma, and that's the being part. Being, or also translated as becoming. So the mental mindset and the mental plan that we formed is turned into action. So we say things, we do things, we create karma in this life as a reaction to what is happening to me. So that's being. Being means that I create these deeds. And because of my deeds, because of my karma, then I shape my future. And that's the last two links, birth and old age and death. That refers to my next life. When I die and I get reborn, what am I going to be reborn as? Am I going to be reborn as a good-looking person, or a not good-looking person? Am I going to be born into a wealthy family or a poor family? Am I going to have a smooth sailing life, or am I going to have a very difficult life with a lot of obstacles? That has a lot to do with the kind of karma that I created in this life, or in the past and all the way through this life. It's going to shape my future. Okay, so that's what the last two links are about. So you see, this covers the past, the present, and the future. That's what the 12 links describe. Now, question: how do we break the chain? The 12 links is a chain, it's an endless chain that binds us so that we are not free. How do we break the chain? Here's the key. Here's the key. The key is to cut off the chain right where we divided the 12 links into the two categories. That is number 7, feeling. When things happen to us, when people say things or do things to us, when we encounter things, we have feelings, pleasant, unpleasant. Now, the ordinary person, the mundane person, reacts with craving and loathing. But as a Buddhist practitioner, we reverse the course. We do not crave. We do not loathe. We do not love or hate because of what they did, what they do, what they say. We keep a mind of peace and calmness. And so we are able to maintain a clear mind to see what is the rational course of action. What can I say? What can I think? What can I say? What can I do to improve the situation? What can I say? What can I do to bring benefit to others? That's how we change our future. And this is the key to breaking the chain. So that is a quick overview of the 12 nidanas, the 12 links of interdependence. In the next 2 or 3 talks, Shifu will go into more detail about the 12 links. For the purpose of understanding the Heart Sutra, if you can understand clearly what this overview is about, it's actually pretty good. It's good enough, because the details will be a little bit complicated. Okay, so if you can fully understand the next 3 talks, 2 or 3 talks, great, that would be great. But even if you think, wow, that is too much, too many concepts and too many terminology, then at least understand this overview. Okay, let us review what we have learned in this talk. So Shifu talked about the importance of this next line. It has to do with the concept of interdependence. What is interdependence? It's about how everything affects everything else. Okay, we also talked about karma. and the law of causality. We also talk about how our karma created out of delusion lead to samsara, the endless cycle of birth and death, which is endless cycle of suffering. In order to break that samsara, to end that samsara, we want to understand the 12 links of interdependence. And we divided the 12 links into 2 parts. The first 7, which is about what we've done in the past, and the consequence, which is how we have this life today. And the next 5 is about how in this life we should react to what is happening in my life, which will change or shape our future. Let us now conclude with a dedication. May the merits of our deeds reach every part of the world. Sentient beings, large and small, all attain enlightenment.